Hi guys, this is Jeff, and I'm going to show you how to get the artwork ready for the 10-foot diameter by 24-inch tall circle trade show hanging sign. And so to start off with, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to drag the template into Photoshop. And this is actually the full-size template. So this represents the graphic going all the way around the perimeter of the circle hanging sign. And so before we get started though, I want to show you a couple things. One, this one is in CMYK mode, so that's correct. If for some reason your template opens up and it's in RGB, go ahead and switch that over because this does get printed out in the CMYK color mode. And you can go ahead and double check that by going to Image and then Mode, and just make sure that the CMYK color is selected here. The next thing, you want to make sure that this is set at 125 dpi for the resolution, and you can double check that by going to Image and Image Size, and you can see here's 125 dpi under the resolution. So once all that is set, you're ready to get started. And so one thing to point out here is that you want to keep the template as its own separate layer. So over here on the right hand side, just keep the template as its own layer because you obviously don't want the template to print out, you just want your artwork. And so when you're all done, and I'll show you this in a little bit, you're actually just going to either hide or you're going to drag and delete the template altogether and just be left with your artwork. So the other thing before I show you the logos is if I zoom in by pressing Control and plus, and I just zoom in a little bit, you can see at the very top here, there's an inch of bleed that goes along the top. And if I go to the bottom, you can see here's an inch of bleed that goes all the way along the bottom. So that's actually going to get printed out, but that's an area that's used for the finishing process. So it's going to get cut and stitched and sewn. And if you have a background color, like let's say your background is red, go ahead and extend that color, that background, all the way into the outer edge of the bleed, so on the top and on the bottom, but keep any logos or anything important, any text of any kind, well below the bleed line on the top and above the bleed line on the bottom. So at least a couple inches or a few inches away from the line on the top and on the bottom. All right, so now the next step is I'm actually going to drop in a logo, and you can see how to do that by going to File and go to Place. And here's my Adobe Illustrator vector logo, which I'm just going to double click. And so there we go. I went to File and Place, and I was able to browse and find my logo, drop it in, and like most logos, it's small. So here it is right here. But it is vectored, and so that means it's going to allow me to go ahead and scale this without it becoming pixelated, without it becoming blurry or pulled apart. So if you don't have a vectored logo, ask your graphic designer or double check so that you can come up with a vectored logo so that it doesn't have any of those issues like it becoming pixelated, etc. So now I need to scale it, and so what I do is I grab a corner here with my mouse and I press and hold down Shift, and then with the mouse I can scale it. So I'm just going to pull it over here and do the same thing with the bottom here. I'll just go ahead and pull it, and this allows me to go ahead and resize it. So whatever I think looks good, that looks right, again, keep it out of the bleed. And then what I'm going to do is just drag it over to the left hand side. So we'll start at the left, right click and go to Place. So there we go. I just added in my logo, I scaled it, looks good, but now I need to repeat it, right? Because this is a circle hanging sign, it's gonna go, we want this to repeat going all the way around the outside. So to do that, I go to the layer and I just right click and I go to duplicate layer, click OK, and I use the move tool here and I can just go ahead and move it over. So there we go. I just made a second logo, and we'll do it one more time. Duplicate, and again. And again, this is just an example, so normally I would take the time to really make sure that the margins between them are all the same and make sure it looks correct. But this is just an example, and so here we go. This is the hanging sign with the logo being repeated 3 times as it goes all the way around. So again, it's whatever looks right. You can have it be repeated 5 times or just whatever looks good, whatever your preference is. There's really no set standard way of doing it. With a square shape, it's a little bit different. Usually it's one logo per side, but with a circle, you have a little bit more of flexibility there. So now what I want to do is I just want to zoom in by pressing Control and plus, or you can press Command and plus on a Mac. And we're just going to zoom all the way in until about 1 inch equals 1 inch on the screen. So here's 185 inches and here's 186. And that's a pretty good representation of how this is going to print out, because that's about 1 inch in real life. And I can see that it looks good if I use the navigator tool. I can comb around and just double check that nothing looks pixelated, that it looks really crisp and looks good. And once you've done that, press Control and minus or Command and minus on a Mac. And you can zoom all the way back out. So at this point, what you're ready to do is you're ready to go ahead and save a copy of the working layered file. So this is a file that you can revert back to in case you need to make any changes or anything like that. You don't have to start all over again with your design. So once you've done that, you're ready to go ahead and get it ready to save. And so remember how we talked about deleting the template layer. You can just click the template layer and then just drag into the trash can. And now we're just left with our artwork. So one final step is we want to just lock everything in place and flatten it. So you go to Layer and Flatten Image. And what that's going to do is it's just going to make all those different layers, all those design layers, and it's going to compress it down into one flattened document. And this is going to be what we use to print off of. And so in order to save it, you just want to go to File and click Save As. And usually you can save it as a large Photoshop document, like a .psb. Or a PDF if it allows you to do that. Sometimes if it's a really big file, it won't allow you to save it as a PDF. So a .psb, a large Photoshop document file would be fine. And this is going to be the file that you want to upload. And if you follow these instructions, you'll have really good results and you'll have a really nice color output. And so if you have any questions, let me know and check the notes below for more information and for links. Talk to you soon. Thanks.